24th Sport Services Committee meeting. Start things off, can I have approval for the prior committee meetings minutes? Supervisor Bruno and Supervisor Dresco as the second. Thank you. All right, let's start off with the self-insurance department. We we got to take a vote on it. Thanks. Vote on the minutes.
Aye.
Aye.
Any against or okay? That's so moved. All right, now we'll go on to self-insurance department.
Thank you, Chairman. I have just one item for your consideration, a resolution to approve our chainsaw safety course for this year. We've run this course for several years, and I've asked for up to 8 days. I right now have 4 booked and the possibility of a couple more, but I play it by ear and what the demand is from our municipalities. But this is by far our the favorite course of our municipal workers. It's a great course. It's $900 a day plus his travel from Binghamton in a hotel, and that is I did get the required quotes. That is trainer.
Move it.
We have a first and a second. I know it's a great program. We've talked about it before, and I know it does fill up. So the closer we get, so I understand that. And does anybody ever use a chainsaw? It's always nice to have those little safety procedures come along with it, because there's a few genes and equipment that I've eaten up myself in the days. So I've learned to respect them. Yes, Mr. Weil.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Cornell Cooperative Extension also does something like this, and I think it's with the same individual.
Yes.
Can we just kind of do a group buy and maybe save some money?
I believe his fee is the same. We have talked. They've actually started doing it after I recommended him, and he comes to the area. He does that with private individuals, where ours are municipalities, but I certainly can ask him, but I believe his fee is, he's already a few $100 cheaper than all the other trainers.
So many hands this morning. Yes, Mr. Leggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In light of the storm damages that we sustain each year, and our road crews are out cleaning up in adverse conditions, they spend a lot of time on tree removal and downing, that this is all good training for everybody on here.
Actually, level 3 is storm damage, and I've had requests for that, so that's the 5th and 6th class I'm trying to get this year is a level 3. This is actually a training that people have asked for more of, because it's that good.
Yes, Mr.
Thank you,
Briscoe.
Mr. Chairman. This is available to municipalities outside of Warren County also?
No, it's
No.
available to the municipalities that participate in the self-insurance plan.
Okay.
That's all municipalities in Warren County. In fact, you all could sign up to come as well, your municipal employees, other than the town of Queensbury. The town of Queensbury is not a participant in the plan.
Okay.
So we do not let them into this, because we usually have a waiting list for this training.
Okay.
That's why we try to do
Yeah.
more trainings.
And the town of Queensbury doesn't participate because...
They don't participate in the self-insurance plan. They pulled out about 20 years ago.
Okay, all right.
They do come to some of our trainings. I have board authority to let them come to our trainings, and they pay a fee. This training only takes 10 participants per class. So, if I couldn't fill it, that would certainly be a consideration for them to reimburse us, but that I'd have to get approval for.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. McGowan. Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. And I know I'm here to facilitate and not really interfere with the committee. So, but I was going off of Supervisor Wild's comment on coordinating, if we have Cornell Extension and ours and that guy, the trainer is coming to here, it's just a question, you know, could we all have it here and then be able to save on the hotel? I'm just,
I believe we may be able to do that. I don't think we can do it for this year, because he's booked a year in advance. It's very difficult to get dates. Cornell's having him, I believe, in April, and we're having him in June, and then this fall. But I'll certainly reach out to them and see if we can do that in the future.
well, I guess my question
I
is,
think we're gonna save, I'll ask. I
yeah,
don't think we're gonna save on the daily fee, but yeah.
well, I mean, no, not on a daily fee, but I mean, if we could all have it here so everybody's, can stay here and training and get it done in April instead of June, you know, when everything is jamming. Just a thought, and like I said, I'm not interfering here, I'm just facilitating with a question. Yes.
Thank you, Sharon. The question I have is, this is level 1. You had indicated there's 5 other levels.
I gave you a sample poster for level 1. This is the first day of training. My complete safety schedule that I email around regularly has all of the training. This week, the 9th, I believe it's the 9th and the 10th is 1 and 2, and then the following week is 1 and 2. Simply because the trainer only had 2 days available each week. And then I have not yet confirmed dates for hopefully the fall for the level 3. But yeah, those posters are all in the catalog I email
Thank you.
regularly out.
Thank you.
Okay, so, we've already voted on it, correct? Oh, all right, so, let's, I'll call for a vote. Everybody in favor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aye. Anybody against? So moved. Thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing and see if we can rearrange the schedule just a little bit, but if not, we'll move forward. Thank you. Okay, now we have Pam Vocal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And good morning to all. This morning I'm asking for your consideration of the notice to bill. It has been circulated in the process that does occur in Warren County. Notices to bill are prepared by myself. They go to the civil service and HR, then they come upstairs to the county administrator, and then over to the budget officer, and now they are being presented to committee and to the chairman of this committee. So the notice of bill is for motor vehicle license reg clerk. It is a grade 8, and that is $34,988 based on the current contract. This vacancy, as you'll note in the minutes presented to you, is a result of a resignation that occurred. Person going back to the private sector had been with us 3 years. This is a full-time position. All the benefits that are associated with full-time employment are associated with that. It has been in the budget. We have 7.5 positions of this type, including supervisory positions in the motor vehicle. But they are in the county budget, the county clerk's budget under A1410, 110, which is your full-time salary. A note about this, the person that does, even though we are going to be working from a list, so that's probably a new piece of information that I can give you. The list, we've been waiting for it for some time. Posted last summer, tested in October 19th for motor vehicle license clerk. Results came last week. So basically close to 120 days to get the list. The list is now being canvassed by civil service, which is another part of the process. And I expect probably later this week, early next week at the latest, that list for those who are looking for the full-time work will be available for interview and starting with what we call in civil service, the top 3. We will work through that and see where it goes from there. But hopefully we will have a candidate place, within the next 2 weeks, I hope. Placement, please understand, does not mean being able to perform this work. It means that you start to go into training and under the very close and watchful eyes of our supervisors in the DMV. Very lengthy process in order to get through all of the complexities of DMV. But we start slow and then we move forward. So that is our status. What else is going on? All motor vehicle clerks, supervisors, are subject to FBI fingerprint background checks, criminal background checks. So that will come after, once they're in place, and we begin the training process and determining whether or not how far they can go and if they're going to make it. So background checks are a part of this, and they will come, of course, in due time. Revenue generating office. 2019, $633,000 of transactions of revenue came into the county from the transactions that occurred inside the DMV here at this office. That's the summary of it. Happy to answer questions as best I can.
Well, someone would like to bring this to the floor.
I'll bring it to the floor, and I have a question.
Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you.
Supervisor Stapler. Stapleton. Shepler.
Pam, the 120 days, that's a long time to get a list back, isn't it?
Yes.
Do you have people working provisionally in the meantime?
I have one provisional half-time that's been there since June.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Good.
I believe, and I'll tell you what I was told, because I did look into this several times over the course, was New York State Civil Service that administers the test and corrects them. They had some new software and they had some software problems. And so that may have extended us out an extra 30 days. We did, I did reach out directly to the state on this.
And
So,
then if I could just do a follow-up. Has your office thought about doing satellite DMV? Because these registrations, the revenue you generate, that's because you're doing it in person versus people doing things online. Is that correct?
not everything can be done online.
Okay.
EDLs, we did 6,000 last year. Real ID, we did 1,200 last year. But they have to be done in this environment. Those take 2 people, so then we'd have to put 3 out in the field. That being said, there has been, we have attempted and have laid the groundwork to bring in, kind of rotate into the outlying districts, a satellite, if you will, that would be able to accommodate some of the simpler transactions. Unfortunately, DMV has held us up on that in terms of, because they're making so many changes in hardware, in how they're going to do things by the year 2025. They actually had our request for some of the equipment that would allow us to go out there with 2 people, but not 3. But we are delayed on that. So if it comes to a point where they are ready to finalize the deal, I think we'll be ready. Keep in mind right now, I mean, the bulk of our work are these special licenses. And that's where you get the time involvement, that's where you get the staff involvement, that's where you get all of the concerns about documentation and what are we bringing and do we have it all. And so it's a process. It's very busy down there this morning. There were 20 people waiting.
Already, yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah. We have been trying over the last 6-8 months to put 3 on in the morning, and it clearly is a help. Right now, we have the vacancy, and we have an individual out. His mother's in hospice, so he's out for a couple weeks. Thank you.
Yes, Supervisor Hogan.
Please extend to your staff our deepest gratitude for them stepping up during this time. Difficulty.
To appreciate that. It's a busy day down there.
It's always a busy
It's
day.
always a busy day. Thank you.
Supervisor
Morning,
Driscoll.
Pam. Is there a cost to the county for the background checks?
Yes. They run about $110.
Is that done through a private company, or can
It's
state
done-
police do that?
It cannot be done through the state police. New York State is contracted with Identigo, so all background checks now, whether it be for pistol permits, whether it be for patrols, whether it be for any school bus drivers, is done through what they call Identigo, which is a private firm. They operate, they have schedules, and I think it's Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday they are available at Staples. When
Yeah, I've had to do
you've
that.
probably
for
seen
some-
them.
yeah.
When New York State began requiring this, it was all part of National Commercial Driving and Real ID. So those programs required this. And so employees at the time around 2008, New York State paid for those, but as we lose an employee or gain an employee, then that employee, we have to assume the cost. Last year, I think I did 2. This year, 1.
Okay, so, yeah, it's not a major, I was just, yeah.
It's about 110.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that
Program.
program.
Okay.
Yes, Supervisor Well.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Pam, a couple of questions. I know that most of this is driven by Real ID, Enhanced ID. When do we expect that to fall off in terms of demand? It's the end of this year, isn't it, when most of this is people that are trying to fly, that they can't get on an airplane unless they have Real ID or Enhanced ID,
Yeah.
or passports?
Well, we're certainly hoping that the TSA is more positive about our enhanced driver's license. That being said, yes, October 20 is, you can renew anytime, you can renew a standard license anytime, and
Right.
you can renew any of this as time goes on. This will be how you do it.
Okay, so I would expect that we're going to have a drop-off in
It-
demand in
it
October.
should.
So
Should
this,
drop off some.
this person we're trying to add,
We're not
we have to
adding.
go through, we're hiring a new person. So it's background checks, it's training, it's everything else. When will this person be actually able to work behind the countertop and
Hands-on?
and hands-on and
Full
be able
service?
to help with the backlog?
We will introduce the simpler transactions to begin with. Depending on the individual, full service knowledge is probably a year away. That includes not just your licensing, but your registration, your enforcement, and your insurance.
I understand.
Those
So-
are daily things.
So my concern is that whenever we add or refill a position, a full-time position, it's a long-term financial commitment to this individual as well as to the county. So if we have this spike in demand now, that we expect to drop in October, we're adding a person to help with this demand, but they won't come on until next year to be full capacity. Does it make sense to add someone, or can we maybe borrow somebody from Washington County and give them a premium, or Saratoga County, and find a way not to add full-time staff that kind of reduces our the long-term strain on our budget and our finances?
Okay, you are working at a reduction right now.
I understand,
With-
and we're getting by.
No.
People aren't happy, but we're getting by, right?
People are not happy.
Right.
The staff is
but
challenge.
I think everyone understands that it's a short-term unhappiness. Well, there,
It would
The
be.
question, is it a short term, or is it going to be chronic
Okay.
demand?
Our expectation is that the transactions that we have are not getting lessened. They aren't becoming less complex. They are high demand, so you present your documentation today. Those are the same kinds of expectations that we're going to be looking at. The other thing to realize is you're not, well, and you pointed out, we're not really adding, but you're asking, should we maybe just try and get by? Absolutely, you cannot get by with 70,000 transactions a year with not filling this. It'll slow us down to fill, but that is the nature of what happens in a training experience. But we gave up a position 3-4 years ago, 2010 to 12, we gave up a position in the DMV to help the county. So we are actually working at half a position less.
And, you know, Mr. Chairman, thanks, if I can just, one more statement. I guess it's my experience in the private sector that brings me to this conclusion that we should really think before we add or backfill, is there a way to get around it? Because it does add long-term costs. So I remember constantly being challenged. We're going to do more with less. That was just the way it is. So I'm uncomfortable adding more staff if we're getting by today. I know we're dropping somebody, but really, I'm thinking that the demand is going to drop down in October or December because it's not going to be enhanced to real IDs. And what you're saying is no, the demand is going to stay the same.
We've gone up to 70,000 transactions, probably. It's hard to tell, but we could be around 60. 60 has been our lowest number of transactions per year for a number of years. So that is not going to go. And when one thing goes down, something else goes up. The car registrations go up. You know, it's a busy, demanding place. And also remember that you're looking at significant revenue. When they walk out the door and say, I'm not waiting here anymore, I'm going to Washington County. And by the way, none of our counties have extra staff to release. None of them do. Everyone is tapped with the busyness of the office.
If I can go further, Pam, when you mention this as a revenue generating, it sounds like a business, right? We're in service, right? That's what I believe government is. So to say that we need to have this revenue, I know the revenue is important, we all think about that. But at the same time, right, then we're talking about revenue and cost, and what's the benefit? I just wish there was another way we could do this, instead of adding another full-time employee. We do it. We do it all the time. We're continuing to add staff. And that's retirement and everything else adds a big drain on us in the future. There's our past budget officer back there who's now our chairman who might have something to say about, right, the cost of adding an employee and continuing to add employees. I don't know what the numbers are, but I worry about it. Thank you.
Well, hang on. Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you. Supervisor Wild's remarks, it's a point we bump up against all of the time. We are not in a production industry. We are in a service industry. This revenue would be coming in regardless. These are services people need. They're going to need them whether they have to stand in line for 3 hours or for 20 minutes. But we are in the service industry. The reason people pay taxes is for us to serve them. And if Pam's saying that the best way we can serve them is to fill this position, then I'll support her.
Thank you,
Supervisor
Mr.
Driscoll.
Chairman. We've had this discussion before, and this past year I asked Pam, because some other departments in Warren County utilize per diem or retirees to come back, and we've talked about that, and she very eloquently, said that it's something that they've always considered. It's always been on the table, but it's just not practical for the type of work that they do. More practical in public health, planning, departments like that. But if it could be done, it would be done. But it again, like pulling from other municipalities, it's just not available for them.
Not available. We, on the provisional that we have, which is that particular position is focusing on the editing of dealer work that expedites the dealer responsibility that we have. And that person has tested. We are waiting the results of that test and her placement on it. But that person actually came to us from the private sector after 31 years in a dealership. She doesn't know EDL, she doesn't know Real ID, she doesn't know how to go through my reciprocity if I decide to move up from Virginia to, she doesn't know that. What she knows though is dealer work. She doesn't know what these titles look like, are supposed to look like. She knows what the dealer forms are supposed to look like. So when she comes in at 9:30 today, she will sit down with that stack and she will begin to edit it. Part one of the process of completing a dealer transaction. So that's a plus, but no, there isn't a large, there isn't a group out there that wants to come back to this office. I wish there was, in fact, a pool out there, as Mr. Wild has suggested in a way that we could go to. I wish New York State would train a pool and we could say, because we have, a couple, 3,000 hours of leave that are guaranteed every year that I have to fit into this whole process. To be able to say, like the New York State court system, can we take an individual and bring them in? Because the work is the same, it's the same work. But that doesn't exist. And we obviously have to work very hard to provide a very trained, knowledgeable individual to service and to work with our public. And that public can come from anywhere. They don't have to just come from Warren County, but they do come. They do come. So, thank you for your thoughts.
Supervisor Shepley, you
I did have a question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is I'm just trying to clarify. This is a replacement position, not a new position being created.
That is correct.
So the starting salary would be less than the person who was retiring?
Yes, yes, probably in this case, because it was only 3 years, I believe we're around about 36, so it would save us a little. She will come in at, she or he will come in entry level.
And this person will be able to, in the future, after they've been trained sufficiently, be able to relieve anybody else that's
Yes.
there if they choose to go on vacation or have a leave or something
Well,
else.
they'll all have an assignment every day.
But I mean, they're able to be plugged into another position, another location on the desk or what have you.
Right.
To handle additional business.
They will assume it, they will for a period of time, even when they go solo, we'll have a supervisor on either side of them.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
you're welcome. Any more questions? Supervisor Bruno.
Help me understand this. It says we generate significant income to the general fund. Average 12.7% per transaction, 12.7%
Of that transaction. If it's a 9450 transaction, 12.7 stays here.
Oh, okay. That's
And the balance goes to New York
Yeah.
State.
Well, I know myself years ago became very dissatisfied with DMV here. And I went, and that, when you were there, and I went to Washington County for years. So there's that percentage. I mean, it doesn't take an awful lot of people being dissatisfied because, and it was because of the slow process, the backlog. I mean, they come up here, it's like going to a doctor's office, you know, you get an appointment for 9 o'clock, you're looking to get in by 11. So, I just, I think that while I agree wholeheartedly with Mr. Weil, I'm very wary of new hires or additional hires with respect to that effect on the county budget, all that. But there's also something to be said for being efficient in attracting more people, more customers, if you will. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, just to give you a base to it, you know, there's a lot of phone calls that come in, and I don't know if you've ever tried to call to get into DMV, but you basically leave a message, and when they can call you back, they call you back. You know, and there are times that Friday, they were waiting out the door too. Mondays and Fridays are usually the the busiest days, but that $633,000 is a lot of revenue to be bringing in, and at 12.7%, it would be behoovious us to keep that flowing. So
I also might add, it was after you, and I mean this sincerely, it was after you took over, things became more streamlined that I came back.
We have been working steadily since 2004-05 to improve the efficiency in the office. Most recently, when we redesigned the DMV back in 2017-18, and finally got rid of all the wires and everything and had a more functional workplace for both the staff and for the customer, we did add the welcome window and the edit window, actually. So it makes me happy when I can see that edit window working, and it makes me very happy when I see the welcome window working. So other than possibly a short break where somebody else has to take care of that welcome window, I want every person that comes in, yes, take a number, but we are on that welcome window trying to find out what it is that you need that day. Find out what your documents are, because we sincerely, and Warren County does not want these people to wait an hour only to find out that they do not have what they need. So we are working very hard to find out what's there, to have the quickie transactions come up so that they, to surrender a plate, do not have to wait an exorbitant amount of time. If you have to wait 15, 20 minutes, that may be the way it is these days. But we are working very hard, and each one of the staff has been at that window over the last 6 to 8 weeks, and it does make a difference. It does make a difference when we can put 3 on first thing in the morning to catch that 20 people and to move those through. With our situation right now with an extra person out and now with the resignation, we can only put 2 out. That extends that initial flow coming in a little bit longer. When I go downstairs, I'll see how we're doing. But by 9 o'clock, you do then have the balance of the staff. Our finance person is also scanning. Taking her away from finance right now, but I'm willing to give her up for about an hour to, so that we can ease the burden out there. So we are making our efforts. It's a full-time job to do that all the time, and that's what we in government do. We don't stop. We don't stop trying. We hit a roadblock. Sometimes we have to take a different direction. But that is the focus and the mission that we have in our office, and I believe that's the mission what we have in county government.
Or if I might add, Pam, you do an excellent job down there, and you do. It's a busy spot, just not in DMV. I've been down there at the talking and and up and down the hallways, and there's constant flow going in there. So thank you very much. So to move things along, is there any more questions on this? I'd like to call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you, Pam.
That's all I have right now.
Okay, Pam. Well, I believe that brings us to a conclusion of our, yes?
Motion to
Pardon?
adjourn, yeah.
Oh.
Motion to adjourn, thanks.
Well, I was just getting to you.
Okay,
pushing
yeah,
me to
okay.
this. Okay, adjourned. We're out of here.
You don't get a second and a vote?
Can I have a second?
It's too late.
Thank you.